Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Jill.
Frank Carini,
Here.
Cheryl Cerniglia,
Here.
Amy Malat,
Here.
Leah Schreiber Johnson,
Here.
Mark Verhalen,
Mark.
He's here.
Darren Gabowski,
Here.
Jane Eichhoff,
Here.
Sophia Azim, here, Francine Annabon,
Here.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our school board meeting here on the agenda 4. If we have no objections from A through D or any questions, it would be approved. Any questions? Okay. So that's approved. We'll go to number 5 on the agenda, public input. We recess former portion of the meeting to entertain comments or questions on the agenda item. Kindly fill out this gold form. And we do have someone in the computer room, John Belkey.
Mr. Bennett, if anybody would like to speak, you can go right ahead and direct them to the how-tos now, please.
All right, ready to go. Hey, Frank.
Hey, John.
First of all, I want to thank you for returning my calls. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. 2 things. I'll give you the good first. I've been working the solar speed limit down on 13th Street for a long time, but not as long as you have, and Dr. Dan and Dr. Culver. But I got a call from Matt Sullivan. He received a grant from the federal government. You might have heard about this. And that's a very good thing. And the county now is actually doing speed limit testing on 13th Street during school zone hours, which is a good. And when I was talking to Matt about it, your name came up a lot about school safety. So kudos to you for not giving up, and I appreciate it, because the speed limit needs to come down and we need light there. So thank you for working so hard on that. Now, the second thing is, my wife and I have been walking the school zone and parking lots and the school grounds. You know, I call you sometimes when I'm walking it, make sure I can do it, and find the boundaries. We're over 60 bags, and I'm not talking pick and save bags, okay? 60, 55-gallon bags. We're okay with it, but we're gonna need help down the road. We do the west school first, because that's across the street. Then we do the east, we do the retention ponds, and we do the wetlands, okay? That's where the animals are. But we're gonna need some help. Can we do something with the committee? Remember, we talked about this a while ago before the COVID?
Yep.
And I had some people come up to me and say, yeah, this is great, this is great. Well, you know how that goes in a mania of life. Afterwards, it's drop the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about this? I mean, the city gave you guys a nice referendum a couple years ago. So maybe the schools can do something with the students, or the parents who driving up, see something, do something with that. I know it's a lot. I know you gotta get out of your car. I know sometimes people gotta stop the lawnmower and pick up plastic bottles that are running it over. But can we seriously look at it? Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right. Anybody else in the room?
I think that's it for speakers tonight. Frank, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll reconvene former portion of the meeting for board discussion and or action. Action items. We have, the first one is the compensation plan for 2020 and 21. Need a motion?
So Nicola moves to approve the 2021 compensation plan as proposed. Wyckoff seconds.
Any discussion?
Nothing has changed, I'm assuming. Okay.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion's approved. Next is the high school course update for new course proposals for 2021 and 2022. We have a motion.
So Nicolay moves to approve the changes for the existing courses and new courses for the 21-22 school year.
Grabowski seconds.
Okay. Any discussion?
And again, anything new? I'm assuming none. Okay.
No.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Next on the item is number 7, informational items. Update on pupil count, revenue limit review, and budget adoption process.
So just give you a little bit of background before we move to take a vote on this. Our third Friday count was completed on September 18th. We have until October 2nd, so they give you 2 calendar weeks to complete the count. So we completed that as of October 2nd, so we included all pupils as of that date. We were down 76 FTEs. It's important to note that's not necessarily 76 students. As a 4K child, according to DPI, is considered a 0.6 FTE, and then kindergarten through 12 is a full-time FTE. So we were down 76 FTE as opposed to last year. It's important to note the previous year that we were down 121 FTE. So we actually slowed down the process during the COVID year, which most of our districts did not. Most of the districts had significantly more student loss than we had. Overall, that's a pretty good add. Or a pretty good change to where we were. And we actually added about $156,000 to our budget through open enrollment. Now that's in change to what was budgeted. So we were about net even for the additional amount of students in to the additional students out, but the way we budgeted them netted us about 19 FTE change, or about $156,000. So the budget that'll come in 2 weeks is at this point $86,000 to the black. The only piece, the final piece I'm waiting for is what is our state aid amount, and that will come out Thursday. So if we go a little further down the sheet, the general fund of $27,872,545 towards the tax levy, that is the last piece with state aid that has the potential to have some adjustment to it. So we're still working off the July 1st state aid estimate. Again, we'll get a final number on Thursday, October 15th, where we'll verify the tax levy. But the other pieces will stay the same. Fund 38 is $1.179 million. That's entirely related to our revenue limit exemption borrowing that we took out a couple of years ago. We were able to prepay about $350,000 of our Fund 38 debt that's been there for probably about a decade now or so. Fund 39, our referendum debt, will be $9,579,529, and that's exactly equal to the payments that we'll pay in calendar year 2021. So debt works a little bit differently. Debt is based off of a calendar year, while our fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30th. Debt is paid January 1 to December 31st. So those are our exact debt payments. And then Fund 80 has 2 components in it. About $4,500 of it is related to the negative fund balance from our last fiscal year of 2019-2020. So again, DPI requires us to make up that amount. And then the other approximately $212,000 in there relates directly to our SRO contract with the city of Oak Creek. So if you recall last year, at some point during the summer, we voted on the SRO contract and adding a third SRO, but levying for the exact amount of those particular payments. So this $216,475 again holds those 2 components, the exact amount of the SRO contract and the $4,500 to make Fund 80 whole. So it'll have a 0 balance as of that $4,500 addition. In any case, that puts a levy at about $38,848,499 with a mill rate of $8.86. That is the exact mill rate we had last year. So again, that is what is projected, but state aid coming in on Thursday could have some adjustment to that. We are anticipating about a 5% property value, so I'll find that number out on Thursday as well. But that's been pretty true for what we have projected the last couple of years in relation to where we've been. So those two things have really helped to keep the mill rate flat. When we talked in August, we were projecting about a 2% increase. In working with some other individuals, they've moved it to about 5% increase is what they're projecting. And again, we'll find that out on October 15th when we get our final revenue limit calculation, which includes our state aid amount. So again, we're down about 76 FTEs as of October 2nd. Currently, we're down about 72 FTEs. So things change when students return to school, and we can verify that they've returned to school. So we will continue to monitor third Friday count throughout the school year. So if a student came on the first day and they show up on June 9th, we'll count them in third Friday and second Friday and make sure that that's counted. So we will keep monitoring that as we move through the year. And ideally, we'll keep just chipping away at that 76 and 72 and keep moving it down as close as we can get. So the FTEs, not as bad as originally we thought. We were going to be around 100. And so we were able to, over the course of the next week, again, chip away at 24 of those. It's important to note that FTE in the third Friday count, though, that really gets spread out over the next 3 years. So it'll count this year towards our revenue limit and then the following 2 years. So we kind of get a third of that each year because they use a 3-year September count rolling average. And so to help, any chance we can help mitigate that decline helps us in the long run. With our declining revenue, our declining student exemption. And so we want to mitigate that as much as possible in order to really stay flat. Is the idea is that our revenue limit stays flat based on our per pupil spending. One other important note on the tax levy, while it did go up to $38,848,000 from about $37 million and some change last year, as you know, we were part of the low revenue limit ceiling adjustment. So we went from $9,700 to $10,000 per student, so about $300 per student on our 6,100 or 6,181 students. So 1.8 million or so was an increase just on the revenue limit based on that low revenue limit ceiling. And again, that just puts us as the lowest district in the state, or tied for the lowest district in the state, with a couple dozen others. And so not significantly outspending our peers in our local area school districts, but being at the lowest. But the vast majority of that additional spend comes straight from that revenue limit adjustment, again, of $300 towards each student in our general education fund. Sure.
So obviously with the FTE coming down, it's great for our budget this year, right? We go in the black, obviously on that one, positive side. But isn't there a residual effect 2, 3, 4 years from now that it actually is a negative side of it based on revenue?
So the more FTE we get right now simply decreases our declining enrollment exemption.
Mhm.
So if we had 50 more FTEs, we wouldn't see an extra dollar in our revenue limit, but that revenue limit exemption for declining enrollment would just shrink. So next year, we're chopping off a pretty big year, 6,233 students. So ideally, we want to replace that with as close to 6,233 students as possible. This year's FTE is 6,026 in total for this year. So from 2 years ago, that's significant fall off of 207 students. So we try to mitigate that as much as possible. Now we're probably not gaining 200 residents inside of that, but we have to try to mitigate that as much as possible. And summer school plays a role in that too. So while we had a pretty good summer school of 118 FTEs, we're typically at between 160 and 170. There were other school districts that their summer school dropped off the face of the earth. At least we were at about 2/3, a little over 2/3. So we'll take that.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it was, I guess, surprisingly nice to see that the where we lost students was more in the kindergarten or 4K level.
Mhm.
And it's making me wonder if that was just a decision by parents to just keep their child at home or with grandma or whatever because of COVID. So, maybe we'll get some of them back next year when hopefully we're back to normal.
I would agree. I have zero statistical data, but 4K in kindergarten is not required. And so
Right. Right.
potentially holding a student back or keeping a student out of school for that particular reason has the potential to be encouraging for next year that students, our FTEs return.
Right.
Any other questions?
No, all in all, good news.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Next is the donation report.
Oh, this has to, oh, no,
No,
sorry.
it doesn't.
Yep, correct. We'll bring that back. We had 3 donations. As this is going to be very similar to what we saw in Q4 of our last fiscal year. The donations are significantly down. Part of it is we weren't in school for all of it. We were in school for a short period in that first quarter of 2020-21. The other piece is that many people's dollars are going elsewhere. We had a significant amount of people lose their jobs or be furloughed for periods of time. So dollars are just going elsewhere. So we're just tracking what we have. We're not really comparing it to previous year's data. Anything COVID is really hard to compare to anything pre-COVID in trying to compare it and say, well, this year we had this, so typically we would expect this in Q1. It just is different, and we have to treat it differently, and we kind of scratch it off as a comparison year moving forward. Ideally, we'll be out of this sooner rather than later, but I do not have a crystal ball to shake and tell you, yes, it will happen, or no, it won't happen, or ask again. I could rub my head and see if anything changes on it, but I don't think it will.
Question for you, Andy. Any connection with PPG?
Yes. We are currently working with them on 2 things. One is we're pretty deep into getting funding for Knights Construction,
Oh, good.
between $8,000 to $10,000. And then the High School Robotics Club is also working with them. I don't know how far they are into it or what their chances are for that, but we're pretty close to Knights Construction.
They have a meeting tonight, actually. So good. Thanks, Andy. Review the upcoming school board meeting, tentative agendas.
So we're financial heavy at our next board meeting. So the fiscal year budget and combined tax levy, certifications for Oak Creek and Franklin's levy. We're going to do the retention report. So Troy will be back to present that like he does annually. Donations again in the September budget. And by popular request, we're going to do a construction update. I've asked for a lot of images. And I've said this a couple of times, like one of the bright spots for all the trouble we've been through is they've been able to keep to a pretty aggressive construction timetable. So the guys will come in and show us some of the work they've been doing. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just add one thing on the projects, just so people are aware? So you've probably seen a significant amount of work done on the PAEC.
Right.
We'll probably continue to see a significant amount of work on that for another month, maybe a month and a half. And then it will seem as if that project went dormant while they move inside and start the work there. So it's not that it's not happening. It just will not look like, it's like building a house.
Right.
The outside goes up real fast, then they side it and you don't see a whole lot for a while. But they're doing the inside and doing drywall and electrical and plumbing and all those things. A very similar thing will happen here. Exterior is a lot done. Obviously not all done, but a lot of it will be done. And now we have to do the inside. And then they'll be back to finish it all up in the spring. So a lot of significant work, but it'll slow down from a visual standpoint.
Okay.
Mr. Cromie and Mr. Rohde have been working very closely with the construction folks, giving us all weekly updates at Cabinet, making sure everything's on track. So I want to thank the 2 of them for all the time and energy above and beyond, especially in the midst of COVID, that they've dedicated to the construction project. So
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Dan, is someone from Nexus going to be here?
oh yeah,
Okay, good. Good.
Yep.
All right, good. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So Niglia moves to adjourn.
Can we have a second?
Malat second.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both say nay. Great. Have a great evening. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.